It's the first of the month. You open your banking app, and for a second, just a second, it feels like a fresh start. The paycheck landed, the balance looks okay, and somewhere in the back of your mind you think, this time is going to be different. You tell yourself you're going to be more careful. You're going to track everything. You're going to stop eating out so much. Stop those random Amazon purchases. Actually move something into savings this time. And you mean it. You genuinely mean it. But then life happens. A bill you forgot about. A night out you didn't plan for. A moment of stress where you just needed something small to feel better. And suddenly, it's the 23rd. And you're watching your account drain down to almost nothing again, thinking, how did I get here? And the worst part isn't even the money. The worst part is the feeling. That quiet, creeping shame that follows you around. The voice that says you're bad with money, you have no discipline, you'll never actually get ahead. Hi, my name is Alpha, and in this video, we're going to explain exactly why that voice keeps showing up and why I think it's lying to you. We've been taught to think of money problems as character problems. If you're broke by the 25th, you're impulsive. If you overspend, you're weak. If you can't save, you have no self-control. And once you believe that about yourself, here's what happens. Every time you fail, it confirms the story. And every new month, instead of actually changing the structure, you just try harder using the same emotional energy that keeps running out. That's not a discipline problem, that's a system problem, and there's a real difference. Let me explain the actual cycle, because once you see it clearly, it stops feeling like a personal failure and starts feeling like a very predictable pattern. It usually starts right after payday. There's a psychological state that researchers actually have a name for. It's sometimes called financial relief. Your nervous system, which has been quietly stressed about money, gets a signal that things are okay. And in that moment of relief, your brain tends to be more optimistic, more generous with yourself and others, and less careful. You buy the thing you've been holding off on. You go out to dinner because you deserve it. You finally feel okay, so you act like someone who's okay. This isn't weakness. This is your brain responding to a stress signal being removed. It's almost biological. Then the middle of the month arrives. Things are tighter. You start making compromises. Maybe you skip a bill to float to payday. Maybe you dip into whatever small savings cushion you had. And here's where it gets interesting. The psychological weight of financial stress actually reduces your cognitive bandwidth. There's real research on this. When you're preoccupied with money scarcity, you have less mental space for everything else. Decision-making, patience, long-term thinking. So ironically, the moment when you most need to be financially careful is the moment when your brain is least equipped to do it well. By the end of the month, you're in survival mode. You're not thinking about goals anymore. You're thinking about making it to payday. And then payday comes, and the cycle resets. Relief, optimism, spend, tighten, survive, repeat. Month after month after month. Now here's the thing. If you've been in this cycle for a while, it stops feeling like a cycle and starts feeling like your personality. You start saying things like, I'm just not good with money, or I'm too impulsive, or I can't stick to a budget. And those statements feel true because you've watched yourself repeat the same pattern so many times. But a loop is not a personality trait. It's a loop, and loops can be interrupted. There's also something else going on underneath this that I think deserves more attention, and it's the relationship between money and emotional relief. For a lot of people, spending isn't really about the thing they're buying. It's about how it feels in the moment. The small purchase when you're overwhelmed at work. The online cart you fill when you're anxious at 11 p.m. The dinner out when everything feels hard and you just need one thing to feel easy. Psychologists call this emotional spending. But I think that label makes it sound shameful, like it's something to eliminate. I'd rather think of it as a coping mechanism that made sense at some point, maybe still makes some sense, but is costing you more than you realize. Because the relief is real, it's just temporary, and it pulls against any progress you're trying to make. And layered on top of all this is something I think about a lot, which is the gap between your current income and the life you're trying to live. For most people, that gap is real. The rent is high. The groceries cost more than they did 2 years ago. A lot of you aren't starting over every month because you're irresponsible. You're starting over because the math is genuinely tight, and nobody wants to say that out loud because it feels defeatist. But ignoring it doesn't help either. So here's the shift I want to offer you. And it's not a hack or a trick, it's more of a lens change. Stop treating every month as a fresh start. I know that sounds backwards because fresh start feels hopeful, but here's the problem. A fresh start implies you're starting from zero again. Same situation, new attempt, different outcome. And that almost never works because the situation hasn't changed. The environment is the same, the income is the same, the stress triggers are the same. What actually creates change isn't more willpower applied to the same circumstances. It's changing one variable in the circumstances themselves. Think about it this way. Imagine you're trying to fill a bucket with water, but there's a hole at the bottom. The traditional advice is, stop splashing, be more careful, focus harder. But what if, instead, you spent 10 minutes finding the hole? The hole looks different for everyone. For some people, it's 1 or 2 recurring expenses that quietly drain everything. The subscriptions, the car payment that's just a little too high, the habit that doesn't seem like much per day but adds up significantly per month. For other people, the hole is the absence of any buffer, which means every unexpected expense goes straight onto a credit card and the interest slowly erodes whatever progress they make. For others still, the hole is purely psychological spending as the primary way of managing stress. And no budget in the world fixes that until something else fills that role. The mindset shift is this. Instead of asking, how do I do better next month? Ask, what is the one structural thing I can change right now that makes better behavior the default, not the effort? That's a completely different question, and it leads to completely different actions. Let me make this real and practical, because I don't want this to stay theoretical. The first thing I'd encourage you to do is map one full month honestly. Not judgmentally, just honestly. Go back through your bank statements and categorize where everything went. You're not doing this to feel bad. You're doing it to find the pattern. Because the pattern is always there. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Usually there are 1 or 2 categories that surprise you, places where money disappeared that you'd genuinely forgotten about. The second thing, and this one's underrated, build what I'd call a soft buffer. Not a full emergency fund yet, that's the goal, but it can feel too far away for most people. A soft buffer is just a small, separate amount, a few $100s that you do not touch. It's not for goals, it's not labeled for anything, it's just there so that when something unexpected happens, you have one layer between you and the credit card. One layer changes the whole emotional game. It's the difference between a stressful month and a catastrophic month. I want to leave you with something. And I want to say it carefully. The reason you keep starting over isn't because you're broken. It's because you've been inside a cycle that's almost perfectly designed to feel like your fault. The stress, the relief, the spending, the tightening, the shame, it all reinforces the same story, that you're the problem. But the system around you is also real. The cost of living is real. The psychological weight of financial stress is real. The fact that most of us were never properly taught how money actually behaves, that's real too. You inherited patterns and beliefs about money from the people who raised you, from the culture around you, and you've been trying to outrun them with willpower alone. That's an exhausting way to live. The goal isn't to become a perfect person with a perfect budget who never makes an emotional purchase again. That's not a real human life. The goal is to slowly, steadily loosen the grip the cycle has on you, to find one hole and patch it, to build one buffer, to automate one good decision so you don't have to fight yourself over it every month. So if you've restarted 100 times already good, that means you've tried 100 times. The next restart doesn't have to look like all the others. It just has to change one thing. Just one. And that's enough to begin.